Good evening. Yes, and to echo what Ian said about thank you ever so much for the money, effectively, and allowing us to do what we do. Thanks for choosing us among other people. Yeah, I shall dive straight in. I don't know. A lot of you won't necessarily know what who Plantlife are, who we are, etc. I'll just quickly run through. We are, the easiest thing is just literally to read off the page here, because that's explain it better than I can. We're the international conservation charity working to secure a world rich in plants and fungi. So we were founded in 1989, and we've now got 15,000 members and supporters. Wild plants and fungi are the foundation of all life on Earth, and Plantlife enhances, restores, protects, and celebrates our natural heritage through work with landowners, other conservation organisations, public and private bodies, and the wider public. And we own 23 nature reserves that cover around 4,500 acres across the UK. We are governed by a board of 12 trustees and around 70 staff nationwide. And we have support from about 1,500 volunteers who work across in the field, events, and our offices. And we are a registered charity, so we're funded by donations from members and supporters, and of course through grants and charitable trusts, and then also through other bits of consultancy stuff increasingly now as well. Next one, please. So we're talking specifically about Ranscombe Farm Nature Reserve, which is what this grant has gone to. So it's a nature reserve which we manage in partnership with Medway Council and a long-standing tenant farmer. Now, Medway Council, we don't have any money from Medway Council. Everything we for the management of the site is it's all comes from Plantlife's income. It's 252 hectares, or in old money, 620 acres, and it's a mixed site of woodland, lots of ancient woodland, agricultural land, and it's on the Kent Downs, the North Downs. And as I say, woodland covers about half the area. A lot of this is ancient, so that goes back to it's been wooded, if you like, had trees on it since 1600, so 400 years. And we have about 400 vascular plant species there, and about 30 of those are nationally and regionally rare. So it's a very, very important site. Can't underestimate that. It's the richest site for arable plants in the whole UK, and it's of European importance. And importantly, it's a unique opportunity to undertake innovative forms of management where more traditional management is often not meeting the wide needs of plant conservation. And importantly, it's an area of attractive and accessible countryside located right slap bang on the edge of Medway, so providing a unique experience for local people. Next, please. So there we are. It's a bit squished, but on my screen anyway. But here's Medway Towns there. So this is where we are on the yellow boundary, right up there. Just to the west of Strood. We're bounded by 2 railway lines. As many of you know, the area it's an area that is very, very densely populated. Obviously, North Kent, it's always some sort of development pressures going on. Lower Thames Crossing is looming at the minute. There's always something going on, but at the same time, it has some absolutely massively important places for nature conservation, wildlife conservation. Yes, really, really important habitats of national significance and beyond. But yeah, it really hammers home here, obviously, the fact that we are very, very close to the edge. So it's within the Kent Downs area of outstanding natural beauty, but we are right on the urban fringe. And a lot of that, where we butt up against Strood there, a lot of our audience, we have typically about 80,000 visits throughout the year. And the southern end of Strood there is particularly a deprived community there. So it's a very important resource. Next one, please. And we are, as I say, it's a mixed landscape. So it's a working farm But within that, there is the context, the incredibly important wild plant context in there. So just showing here, what we've got here is obviously there's some a commercial crop there, cereal crop, but then obviously showing the context here of around the edges, some nice wildflowers there, some stinking chamomile there, for those interested, and poppies there as well. Next one, please. So yeah, and also just so about the access once again, with 10 miles of footpaths across the whole site, and some of these are permissive bridleways, cycleways, and so on. Yeah, next one. And typically, this is what a lot of people enjoy seeing during June time. Fantastic displays of poppies. It's, as I say, it's the most important site for arable plants in the whole UK, which is no understatement. These are particularly rare group of plants that are forever decreasing and declining, incredible importance. But visually, so the poppies are one of the visually most attractive things. The arable, the rare arable plants, cornfield flowers and so on, they are managed in conjunction very much with our tenant farmer, because through his stewardship agreements with Natural England, so whereby he gets paid compensation for what he wouldn't make, what he would otherwise have made on the crop. But it's it's very much important. These are plants that are very much within the context of an arable farm landscape. If you go on to the next one. And just running through some of the other interesting ones that we have there. So I'm not expecting you to speak to know many, unless you're a keen botanist or wildflower hunter. But some of these things are, I mean, narrow-fruited corn salad there in the top left, endangered, massively important. Corn cockle on the top right. That's a plant which it's believed that the only place in the wild where that still occurs in the UK is at Ranscombe Farm, in the same field it's been the whole time. Blue pimpernel there in the bottom left, and dense flowered fumitory there in the bottom right. So these are rarities. Next one, please. And this one, of course, as I'm sure you're familiar with, broadleaf cudweed. This was up until about 2005, when Plantlife took on the site. There was thought to be about 95% of the entire country's population of this plant was at Ranscombe. So, and now the work that we've done over the years to increase its population, so it's obviously now 99.9% or whatever, but because literally when it gets going, you get hundreds of thousands, millions of plants. So yeah, that'll be very, very important site for that. Next one, please. And there's also some ones associated with the grasslands and meadows at Ranscombe. So meadow clary in the top left, very attractive plant there. One of the first time it was ever recorded in the UK was 1699 at Ranscombe. So again, just hammers home the significance of the site. Bit more common, rock rose in the top right, burnet rose in the bottom left, and clustered bellflower. Both those bottom two are quite rare in Kent, but got nice populations at Ranscombe now. Next one. And everyone likes an orchid, so fly. All these are very, as I say, very with high conservation status, very rare. Fly orchid in the top left, man orchid in the top right, lady orchid in the top and the bottom left, which is of most of the population of that plant occur in Kent in the UK. So particular importance in managing to maintain that. And white helleborine down the bottom left, bottom right. So a lot of these occur in our grasslands and woodlands at Ranscombe. Next slide. And we have associated with that other wildlife, including sort of like chalk-hill blue there on the left, associated with some of our chalk grass, and with our woodland silverwash fritillary butterflies on the right. So a whole host of other wildlife, which obviously benefits directly from the assemblages of plants and so on, and at the site. Thanks, please. Grazing is a big part of the management of the place. So yeah, working with that tenant farmer and having integrated grazing systems and having animals around, you know, shifting from place to place, moving seed about, all that kind of thing, as well as managing the vegetation. So all these sort of sustainable means of managing the habitats. Next one, please. Volunteers play an absolutely critical part in our in the management of the reserve. I mean, without them, I'm the only person who work, you know, I'm the only staff member there. So without volunteers, it would be, you know, I'd be at loose end. They provide. From the point of view, you know, every Wednesday, essentially, we have practical tasks. So they are, you know, we have typically about sort of a dozen people out, or 8 to a dozen people out every week, and then other volunteers doing other bits of roles, other roles, and so on, including cattle checking and wildlife monitoring and so on. But next one, please. Yeah, and they've become very skilled at all kinds of things, including processing some of the woodland products into fencing stakes and that sort of thing. Next one, please. So on to actually what your money has actually been going into here. As I say, you've got the two spots here in the yellow outlines, 2 areas where entrances into the woods at Ranscombe, where we wanted to try. It was difficult from a public access point of view because they get very, very wet. What you've got up on the top of the up in the northern part of the site basically is up on a ridge, and the rain all kind of sort of runs down towards where it flattens out down the bottom, and that bottom edge between the woodlands and the fields gets incredibly wet. But we've got public rights of way through there, which are which if you go on to the next slide a second. Yeah, you can see here, for instance, this typically the tracks, this is what tends to happen during over the winter, is they get very, very waterlogged down there, down that bottom end. And obviously it's not ideal for people walking and so on. So that's actually a tree that came down in that big storm in February, sadly, but that was just happens to be the photo I took. So yeah, a lot of water, but it's interesting because the site as a whole is pretty dry because we're on the downs. There isn't really other standing water around, but having this sort of temporary accumulation of water can actually be very good, provide good habitat for all sorts of things. And so over several years, what we're finding is a lot of where these waterlogged paths would actually have all kinds of things like sort of tadpoles and all sorts of things, actually, including from a plant point of view. If the next slide, please. Things like this, which is a not particularly common wetland plant called brackish water crowsfoot, which mainly occurs more around the coast. Well, we are really fairly much on the coast, but this was actually establishing in some of these wet areas, these seasonal wet areas. So you kind of think, well, it's a shame to lose the interest. It's a shame to lose the interest of that habitat, but at the same time, we don't really want all of our, you know, these paths and tracks just being a bog during the we want them to be usable. So what we did as part of this project was to try and say, right, well, where can we try and divert the water off, maintain the habitat there, but actually then keep the paths and the tracks maintained so that it's easier for them people to access along them and so on. So the next slide, please. So here, this was back in June, I think, June time, before it got really hot. This is digging a drainage channel down the side of one of our tracts of the woods, so that the idea being that water will then accumulate in these and then yeah, divert it off into here, and then we can basically surface, stone surface the actual rest of the path. So yeah, we had a digger doing this sort of work. We've had that. So next one again, please. And then basically didn't really know what was going to happen for a while, because then it didn't rain for like 2 months. But then in the last sort of yeah, literally this was I think last week, because we've had a bit of rain now and heavy at times. So yeah, so now basically what's happening is obviously the water is now accumulating in here. So this will provide over time, will hopefully develop into some decent bits of you know, seasonal wet habitat, whilst keeping the rest of the track dry. Over, if you next one, yeah, and then here we've got another a slightly bigger where it's flowing down the kind of this was an old track through here, which was always getting very really quite deep at times. So we just basically landscaped that more, opened it out more, made it more into a sort of basin, and hopefully the water, as you see, is starting to accumulate there. A lot of it just would have permeated straight the way through the ground after not having been rained on for 2 months, but now it's starting to, you know, accumulate a bit more. So, and then I met with a contractor today, and they're due to start work on, if you go next slide, please, then actually the stone surfacing of the actual track through on the dry bit of the so this is one from earlier, this is one from a couple of years ago when we did some other track surfacing on the site. So that's what it essentially will look like. So 2 sections, one of about 50 meters and another about 70 meters into the woods, where it's particularly where it gets particularly wet, and then it starts to rise up and it dries out a bit as you go further up the slopes. So yes, and I think that's it in summary of what we're doing.
Right, thanks a lot, Ben. Actually, I'll declare my own interest. I run with Gray's End Road Runners, and there's also another running club in the Eisted and Ifield, and I didn't even know we were running over Ranscombe, but we use these paths in the summer months. Now we've finished now, so it's all road running now. But I'll be looking out for some of those plants there next May when we get back there. That's for sure.
Yeah, May to July is always a good, always the best times.
Oh, it's a fantastic place. I mean, and you got the North Downs right across it as well, which is fantastic. Right, any questions there for Ben? Any comments? That was, and again, you can see it certainly ticks our environmental and social boxes as well. So, yeah, and I mean, the whole project there, it's about, I mean, we supported what, £3,500, but the whole budget for that was 22,500 plus, wasn't it? So
yeah, I mean, yeah, we weren't able to do everything that we wanted to do, because the other thing that we're still aiming to do is to establish a small car park on the edge of the woods, which is not a permanent use thing, but it's so that our volunteers and also any visiting groups and things like that, particularly anyone with any groups with sort of restricted access and mobility and so on, can actually get much further up
access as well
onto the thing. But we've got to basically
all of these things. They're works in progress, but again, using volunteers, the kind of leverage you get, bangs for your bucks, of course, is massive. So yeah, thanks a lot, Ben. Go on, Mike.
No, thank you.
Yeah, could I just ask, can you see part of this Ranscombe area from the railway line into Rochester from Mepham?
It's on HS1 is the line, yeah.
Well, we've also along the southern boundary. There's the line from from
Mepham,
Rochester, Chatham, Rochester through Mepham up to Victoria.
Yeah.
Right.
Runs along that southern edge. So you do see some of it coming through there actually. But
Yeah,
see some of it, the railways in the cutting, so you don't. But then you can see some of it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, it's just that I live in Rochester and I didn't realise that it was there. And
You and me both, Mike, until I knew the name. Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Okay.
you.